And we're back. You tuned into Sport Federation TV. I'm Ch263. From the world of fly fishing, we have Dirk, Immelman, and Garth, Nieuwenhuis. Welcome, gentlemen. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the first time I'm interviewing fly fishing, and when one thinks fly fishing, they think of that old Bowls advert that used to come on TV. But please explain it to us. Describe your sport for us.
Okay, so fly fishing, what makes it different from normal fishing is we try and imitate the flies or insects, and then try and understand the ecosystem that the fish live in, and try and fool them by making them think that your fly is actually a real insect, and trying them to eat, and yeah, that's basically what makes it different.
Wow, so if you're trying to fish a particular species of fish or genus or whatever they call it, then you would try to make a bug that would represent what they prefer eating.
So we try to do something that would be one of their foods, and that's how we make a lure, if you can put it that way, or a fly that tries to imitate some of their food. And the thing that makes fly fishing different to other types of fly fishing is that the weight that we use to sort of cast further in fly fishing is actually in the line itself, as opposed to other types of fishing which would use a sinker, or the weight would be predominantly in the lure.
Yeah, and it is that sport where you cast the rod and so majestically, so beautifully. All right, so well, you've mentioned now the difference between one of the differences between the regular fishing and the fly fishing, and it being the weight, where the weight is distributed. What are some of the other essential differences for people who are maybe thinking of moving over from the conventional fishing to something a little bit more challenging?
Well, fly fishing is much more minimalistic, so you carry everything with you, even though you can sometimes have a lot of unnecessary things. You try and, because you're taking everything on the river mainly with you, you have a very light tackle, and you also don't have a lot of things. You just have your flies, your rod and reel, and there you go. And it's a really very calm experience being in nature, and just switching off from your work day and just enjoying the fishing.
Yeah, is it a sport that you're competing individually or in teams?
I think that's one of the big misnomers, is that I think fly fishing, there's obviously a massive recreational point to it, and it's really what you want to make of it. So there's a recreational point of view, and then there's a competitive side as well. And the competitive side is really what we do. And the competitive aspects of fly fishing, I think a lot of people would think it's a very individualistic sport, and sure, you compete as an individual, but largely the thing that people don't see is it's a massive team sport. It's about relaying information to your teammates about what's working, how you caught fish, trying to relay that information, and in relaying that information, bettering their next performance and the overall team performance. I think if you had to ask all the guys in the Western Province, about, sure, it's great to win it individually, and that's an amazing achievement, but the team medal is what really is an amazing achievement. Yeah.
So well, Western Province did extremely well at the recent national championship. Tell us about that.
So it was in Camberg, Natal area this year, and I think we had a very strong team that worked well together. We four of us competed in the World Championships together last year, so we had a good team dynamic, and we figured out what worked. The conditions were similar to what we have here in the Western Cape, so and in the end everything just came together and we were unstoppable. So it was a really awesome experience, and we caught some big brown trout, and
I think KZN did a really good job of hosting. Firstly, they were really good.
Shout out to KZN.
Yes, yeah. For all the guys that were there, it was really well organized, and we managed to win not only overall as a team. Western Province came first, but as individuals we came first, second, and third. Dirk was actually the national champion this year.
Where were you in the lineup, Dirk? How many tips did you get before you won?
I also passed on some knowledge and tips, but I must say I was very fortunate with my beat draws and everything, and we got some good information from all the guys. And also Matty Rich, he isn't here, but he won the fly tying championship. So Not only do we have the techniques, we
It's
also know
artistic
the
components.
we've got the best flight tire, and obviously that knowledge he passes on to us. So we've got a really strong team that works well together, and everything just came together. And I think also with the type of rivers and that we have here in the Western Cape, it develops really superior fly fishermen, because it's really challenging and very technical, small rivers. And
Oh, so it's not still water. You do it in rivers and
it's
streams.
both.
Both, yeah. So we've got, it depends, it really depends, but largely fly fishing is done for trout. If we're talking about particularly competitive fly fishing, it's usually trout or yellowfish, but almost always trout.
Yellowfish, it's quite big.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm picturing like small fish when you were
not
talking.
yellowfish in the sea.
No, yellowfish is in the rivers and the Vaal, etc.
Yeah. So what kg are those fish? How many grams do they weigh?
It all depends. So like here in the Western Cape, we would consider a trophy to be taken out, a rainbow trout to be 20 inches plus.
Yeah.
And anything in still waters, anything above 10 pounds would be considered a trophy.
Wow, that big.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how are you assessed? Is it the person that catches something first, or is it the weight?
Fish, most, and so it's firstly it's numbers, and secondly the length of the fish. So all the fish we catch in competitions are catch and release, and once you catch a fish, your marshal measures your fish, and in the end the guy with the most fish gets placed first, and they rank you from the most to the least number of fish. And if it comes down to 2 or 3 guys catching even numbers of fish, it basically counts up all the fish together, and that's how you win.
Wow. There must be a lot of studying, though, I would think, before you go to a new area to attempt to catch their fish.
I think it's just, there are basic fundamentals that work. It's a bit like all sports. There's fundamentals that work everywhere. So if your fundamentals are really good and strong, you can apply those in new areas, and it's about, and you can, yes, sure, you have to adapt to new areas like KZN, and certain flies work a bit better and techniques work a bit better there than say they do here. But I think if you've got if you're a strong fly fisherman, that'll always shine through.
Wow. So do things like currents and winds and stuff affect your sport?
Definitely, or not. It's how the winds and the currents affect the insect life. So in some areas, you might pick up that a certain time of day there's a hatch where the insects, they swim up from the bottom and they hatch into flying insects, and in that specific instance the fish become active and feed on these insects, and they get tuned into that specific insect. So if you pick up to certain...
So they develop a palate for a certain kind of...
Yes, and also they pick up certain changes in the conditions, and with certain changes certain insects thrive, and they all dependent on the food that's available. So if
you've got to change accordingly.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing.
Wow, it sounds so exciting. It really does. I mean, also, the thought process, when you say you need to catch a certain kg and a certain species, and because one would think, how do you actually determine what bites your... But obviously you guys know, and that's what the competition is.
Yes.
Hey.
So that's one of the rings. So we call it detecting a strike, or when a fish eats your fly, and that's basically what it boils down to: is be the guy who can do that most. You can not only get the most takes, but can convert those takes into fish on the line, which is fish in the net, which is obviously points.
Lovely.
So that's where the subtlety lies, and it's a very grey area, but there's a lot in there.
What happens to the fish that is caught at those national tournaments and provincial tournaments?
Because everything is catch and release, so you handle the fish with care, you make sure your hands are wet, you put the fish in a wet cutter, and you safely release it once it's caught. And that fish can actually be caught by the next guy coming after you to fish. You fish in 3-hour sessions, and so on one day there's 2 3-hour sessions, and the competition consists out of 5 sessions. So you can catch one fish more than once, but all the fish are released safely all the hooks that we use are barbless, so the fish aren't harmed in any way.
Ah, wow.
And yeah, they recover quite quickly. So
So
yeah.
it's not one of your teammates got the coals going.
No, no. I think it's just from our ethos point of view that we're going to sort of these really wild areas with trout populations that are very wild, and it's our hope is that the impact we make would be minimal. So you know, it's frowned upon heavily to if any of the fish are killed during a session, you would actually get disqualified if you kill the fish. So yeah.
Wow. Sounds like the fish have a better life than some of the humans in this country. Okay, so how can people get in touch with your exciting organization if they want to try the sport?
Well, we've got in the Western Province, we've got a league, and every year we try and get in as many people as possible. We've got a website. If you go on
Western Province Fly Fishing.
And a Facebook page.
Just go Google it. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a website. With all the contact details there, we've got a dedicated secretary to be able to put you in touch with the right people.
And you have a system in place to orientate people at a relatively low expense if they want to just try.
Yes, for sure. I think the thing is we've got not only, you must remember we've got a senior division and we've got a junior division. And there's cross-pollination between those two. But for any level of fly fisher that wants to get involved, we do loads of outreach programs. To try and encourage people to get into fly fishing, communities around fly fishing areas to try and educate them about the water that they've got and how they can then, how that water can benefit that community.
Lovely.
So
very sustainable projects, eh? Beautiful.
Yes, that's the idea. Yes.
Yeah, I wish we could talk some more. I feel so interested in your sport now. But you can return and give us more information at a later date.
Sure.
Yes.
All right, all the best, gentlemen.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And it's time for that Bashes competition. Remember, to win your case of assorted Bashes drinks, all you need to do is SMS Bashes to 33090. That's Bashes 33090. A special thank you to Bashes, who are one of our proud sponsors, bringing you this show that brings you all the news about all the sports in the Western Cape. We'll be back after the break with another exciting sport. Please stay tuned for that.